You know, we're in that last few weeks of the Christian year where we're sort of working our way through the gospel story up to what really would be Easter, right? Did you know that we only have 2 weeks left before Advent begins? Can you believe that already? This year flew by. But we're in these gospel stories. If you remember, Jesus has gone to Jerusalem for what will be the last time. He's entered the temple, turned over the money tables, cursed fig trees, giving all sort of these judgment pronouncements against the religious of the time, the ultra-religious, self-righteous, the scribes and Pharisees, right? We've moved away from his ministry stories that we've had all year long into these sort of final pronouncement stories before he is crucified. And that's where we are today, just to give the background of today. And what's been weeks for us, of course, is just a few days in Jesus' life. So all these things are happening rather quickly in succession. So last week we had the big conversation with the scribes and Pharisees, and of course talking about how they're all show and no substance, and that's what really ticks Jesus off a lot, is this ultra self-righteousness of the religious. And of course, it's not just 2,000 years ago, but can be brought right up into our day today. And we come today to the story of the 10 bridesmaids. We heard it in Spanish. I hope you followed along in English. Is everyone familiar with this parable of the 10 bridesmaids? Some people are. Basically, it's Jesus telling this story. Telling the story of how there's going to be a wedding, and the bridesmaids are about to go meet the bridegroom who's coming to town, so they go out to meet him, and there's 10 of them, and he doesn't come right away. There's a delay. Matter of fact, it says they expect him, he doesn't come, they get drowsy, they fall asleep. At midnight they wake up and he's on his way, and that's when we find out that 5 of these bridesmaids had oil in their lamps so they can light them and go off to the wedding party, and 5 did not bring oil to their lamps, and they're left in the dark. And at the end of the story, we have these bridesmaids coming to the wedding banquet and saying, "Please let us in." And Jesus, of all things, saying, No, you're not allowed in, you're not ready, and gets turned away. So if you didn't have the English in front of you, that's what it's from. Remember, the important thing for us to remember, though, is that these pronouncements of Jesus through all of this are their exhortations for us to learn how to live holy lives, right? That should sound familiar. That's what we've been talking about every week. How do we know how to live holy lives? All of these things that he says against the scribes and the Pharisees, these self-righteous people, it's about that. Living holy lives in response to God's love for us. These scribes and the Pharisees and the self-righteous, again, live lives not based on God's love and grace, but based upon justifying their own positions in society. Right? And Jesus was constantly warning them and turning their own words against them to turn away from the hypocrisy of their lives. To start living these holy lives in response to God's grace. That's where we are this morning. There's 2 things about this story I want to draw out for us. The first one is that the story is about actually a delay in the coming of the bridegroom. The bridegroom normally wouldn't come at midnight. They don't really have weddings at midnight. We still don't do that anymore. So we're told in the story that these bridesmaids go out to meet the bridegroom, presumably on the road from his town or whatever, coming to the town to be married, and they're supposed to escort him into town and festivities, but he doesn't come. He's late. They fall asleep. He doesn't come till midnight. Unexpected time. Of course, remember, this is a parable, right? When Jesus speaks in parables, it's not a real story about a real wedding, although it could be, but there's meaning behind it. So point 1 is, what is the meaning of telling a story about the bridegroom coming late to his wedding? Well, often when Jesus spoke about weddings and bridegrooms and brides, and Jesus is the bridegroom, the church, we are the bride, to be married to Jesus' church. So the point here is, we need to be ready for the coming of our Lord, even if it seems delayed. We expect Jesus to come at one time, he doesn't come. Remember, this is very important for people gospel for the first time. We've spent 2,000 years now expecting the second coming of Jesus. We might be a little more used to the fact that it might not happen exactly today, although it might. But remember, in the first 10, 20, 30, 40 years after Jesus' death and resurrection, people were expecting him to come back right away. That was the expectation. So this story is Jesus actually warning us ahead of time. If there seems to be a delay, don't lose heart. Be prepared at all times for the coming of our Lord. There's lots of sayings in the Gospels, if we remember them. My return will be like the coming like a thief in the night. You don't know when it's going to come. Be prepared. You don't know the hour or the day. Be prepared. So point one, even if there seems to be this delay, we must be ready. The other thing that really needs to be drawn out in this story is the whole point of the oil for the lamps. That's the gist of the story. 5 had oil for their lamps, 5 did not. So what does having oil represent? Could mean having oil for the lamps if it was a literal story. But since it's a parable, what does it mean? And if you remember, I said a few minutes ago, remember this is all happening within just a few days in Jesus' timeline. It's been weeks for us. But if you remember back, I guess probably 2 weeks ago, when we talked about the scribes and the Pharisees asking Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And the answer was, and is, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Everything else hinges upon this. And there's a second one like it, love your neighbor as yourself. So Jesus has just told everyone that. Now he's telling the story about having oil in your lamp to be ready. I think having oil in your lamp in this story represents, have we done deeds of love and mercy in obedience to that great commandment that we were just given. Those without oil for their lamps, those who have not done deeds of love and mercy in response to this great commandment, we're told are left out. It's too late. The story says they're told to go into town and buy some. They ask the others that did bring oil, let's have some of yours. They're like, well, we don't have enough. Go get your own. Go into town and buy some. But it's midnight. There's not going to be any shops open at midnight to sell oil. It's too late for them. And they go and they ask, Lord, Lord, let us in. We're here for the party. And Jesus says, surely I tell you, I don't know who you are. Go away. And that might sound harsh to us, right? We don't like to look at those harshnesses of perhaps we'll be turned away. We like to think everyone's included. But it doesn't say that in this story. And that's point number 2, the second point. You can't really ride somebody else's coattails into holiness. You hear that? It doesn't rub off that way. Others can certainly be examples for us to follow, and we have lots of them. In fact, we'll celebrate some tonight, the saints and the souls of all that have gone before us into God's great heaven. We can follow the example of others, but we can't ride their coattails. It's our actions that count, individually and collectively. Just because you do something good doesn't mean I'm good. Some people like to think that. But it doesn't work. It's not enough to just say the right things. To confess the right convictions, to have the right beliefs. The scribes and Pharisees did that all day long, right? That's what Jesus was constantly griping about. You say this and you say that and you say this, but you don't really do anything that's really based on God's love and mercy. In other words, if our convictions don't match our actions, then the result is disastrous for us. We're left out. Sorry. It's the way it reads. And I believe it. We've been talking for weeks now about morals and ethics. We're trying to reclaim these words, right? Morals and ethics. So if our convictions, what we say we believe, morals, guiding principles, don't match how we act in the world, our ethics, then something's wrong. And really, not a whole lot of good is going to come from it. Note, too, that Jesus had to tell us in this story that there were 5 wise and 5 foolish bridesmaids. Meaning you can't really tell by the looks of someone what's in their heart. Here we have 10 bridesmaids. They're all coming from the same place. They're all going to the same place. They're all carrying lamps. The probably all dressed the same. They were at a wedding party, right? Bridesmaids dresses. So it wasn't the look that set the five foolish ones apart. It was their readiness. And readiness in Matthew's gospel, we hear it over and over. Readiness in the gospel of Matthew means living the life of the kingdom, he says a lot. And that means the quality of life described back in chapter 5 in Jesus' great Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the meek, they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who seek justice. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who do something for others. The problem arises, even today, as it did back then, is that when this kingdom is delayed, or as we say here, kingdom is delayed, when the bridegroom's coming is delayed, a lot of people aren't in it for the long haul. They fall away. And it's especially true, I think, for us today in our society, with text messaging and instant this and instant that, instant everything, which is all good. But instant gratification is the thing. These expectations, we have an expectation of being instantly answered, instantly gratified. If I don't get it instantly, you wrong me somehow. If you send me a text message and 3 minutes later you didn't get a response, it's like, good Lord, what do you hate me? 3 days later, I was against you. It's like, well, I was in the restroom for crying out loud. I didn't answer you back. Expectations of instant gratification doesn't lead very well to lives of faithful service, of patience, of taking time to ensure that we're ready to be called into God's kingdom. So if our society has sort of set us up not to be patient, and not to take time to be ready, how do we do that? We have to be purposeful about it. How do we do that? Well, we become like the wise bridesmaids. We make sure we're ready. We become like the wise. We don't want to be the foolish ones, right? Wisdom, then, is the key. We learn to love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, and soul. I love reading about wisdom. We don't read a whole lot from the books of wisdom. Today we read from the Wisdom of Solomon. There's several books in the Bible that are the wisdom books. This one, of course, the Wisdom of Solomon. Sirach could be a wisdom book. Proverbs is the other big wisdom book. Job, the book of Job, is actually considered a wisdom book. And wisdom, I love it, is always personified in the Bible and ancient Near East cultures as female. And it's described this morning as radiant and unfading. Very poetic, the wisdom book of Solomon. Radiant is wisdom, like a light easily discernible to all who seek her. Unfading, a light that is constant and permanent in our life when we find it. We're told that wisdom seeks out human beings and lets herself be discovered by those who seek her. Wisdom, that firstborn of all creation. Remember, Jesus wasn't born of creation. Wisdom was the firstborn of all creation. Wisdom, the female personification of God's love, seeks us out, wanting us to know God, to know the ways of God, to become holy as God is holy. And with that kind of wisdom comes great responsibility and accountability. Because wisdom of that sort gives us the ability to speak with authority. We take the time to learn, to pray, to discern God's will in our lives. So when we practice this type of readiness, and we listen and learn, we gain a certain amount of authority. And not some sort of authority to be lauded over others, like the self-righteous of scribes and Pharisees and the ultra-religious of even today. That's not the type of authority I'm talking about. Humble, responsible authority is what we're talking about. It gives us great responsibility to do things in this world. We gain that responsibility to seek justice in the present time, keeping in perspective the ultimate judgment of the future. We are here to do the work of the wise, of the responsible, of learned human